All right, let's talk glute growth. How did I go from this to this? So I'm going to break down the top exercises that I used, and this workout is a great place to start. So as you can see, I'm starting with hip thrust, and I just finished a warm-up set before going into my heavy set. So here I am going for 8 to 10 reps, and I'm trying to lift as heavy as possible within that rep range. I want to make sure that I'm completing at least 8 reps. This is a very important thing to note. I'm starting with hip thrusts for a reason, okay? Not only are they a compound movement, but also they will engage my glutes before going into the rest of my workout, meaning that throughout the rest of my exercises, I'll already have activated my glutes and be able to feel them working and have an easier time with mind-muscle connection throughout the rest of the workout, which will lead to better growth, better engagement, and so on. I used to always start my workouts with squats, but ever since changing the order and starting with hip thrust, I felt such a big difference, and it's been so much easier for me to engage my glutes. So I highly recommend trying this if you haven't already. All right, now we are getting into exercise number 2, which is barbell back squats. So as you can see, I'm starting with another little warm up. I like to do at least like a hamstrings to squat stretch before going into squats. Also, I like to do some squats with just the bar before getting into the heavy squats with weight. So one thing I'll say is, because we are trying to engage our glutes during these squats, we do want to make sure that we're hitting a solid depth. You want to be hitting at least 90 degrees, okay? Basically means that your thighs are parallel to the floor. I believe the degree range is between 90 to 135. So as long as you are at least hitting 90 degrees, you should be feeling your glutes working. And this is why we started with hip thrust, because it should be a lot easier to feel your glutes while you're doing these squats. If you're somebody who is really struggling with your squat depth, okay, you gotta work on your mobility. You gotta dedicate time to your mobility, I would say every single leg day. For me, that made the biggest difference in my squats. Just make it a part of your routine, you know? Take the time to do at least like 5 to 10 minutes of that mobility before going into your leg day. And over time, you will see a big difference and a big improvement in how low you're able to squat and what's comfortable for you. So yeah, a few different exercises, like I mentioned, is what you saw me doing, the toes to squat. You can also do 90-90s. There's a lot of great YouTube videos and tutorials that can help you. That's going to make the biggest difference for your squats overall. And then once you're able to hit depth, everything will feel smoother and you'll be able to add weight a lot easier. Another tip is I would put a bench behind you so that you have the goal of hitting your butt on the bench every single time you're going down to your squat. This will at least give you a goal to hit, you know what I mean? That way you know where you're at, where you're starting, and then how much you need to improve. Alrighty, we are on exercise number 3, which is dumbbell RDLs. So it's so important to have a variety of movements in your glute day, all right? Because, you know, we want to be hip hinging. We want to make sure that we're really hitting the glutes from all angles, which is why I try to include a visual with each exercise so that you could see what part of the glutes each exercise is working the most, okay? So here we are focused on making sure that we are bending our knees a decent amount, so we are using our glutes. If you're doing like a straight leg deadlift or RDL, you're going to feel it in your hamstrings more than anything. So we definitely want to make sure we have a solid knee bend and focus on pushing your glutes as far back as possible. Think of closing a door with your butt, okay? This is a very good cue to use. So next up, we have glute kickbacks. So these are our accessory movements. We have 2 accessory movements at the end of our workout. So this workout was very heavy with compound exercises. We started obviously with the hip thrust, then we went to squats, and then we went to RDLs. I did though do RDLs with dumbbells because I wanted them to be moderate weight and high rep. I really focused on like that stretch more than anything. And so, you know, they're a little less heavy than obviously doing them with a barbell. So with our glute kickbacks though, your glutes are the primary mover. When you are doing these kickbacks, you want to make sure that you are squeezing as much as possible at the top of the movement. Try to do them as slow and controlled as possible. And you should feel this burn. Like when you're doing glute kickbacks, they should definitely hurt. You know, as you can see, I'm definitely using some light weight when I'm doing them. Once again, we're focused on high reps for these accessory movements, which is why we're going for 3 sets of 10 to 12 on each leg. And as you guys probably know, there are many variations of glute kickbacks, okay? If you are at home, you can do these with a resistance band, or if you don't have a glute kickback machine in your gym, you can do this with a cable. Just make sure that you have the ankle attachment. But, you know, there's always a way to do the exercise regardless of what equipment is available. And last but not least, we have hip abduction. So we are working our side glutes on this one. Like I told you before, we are covering every part of the glute, right? We're covering our side, our top, our bottom, our gluteus maximus. We want to make sure we're having a well-rounded glute workout, which is why it's important to include different movement patterns. So here we are going for the highest reps of 15 to 20 for 3 to 4 sets. I was dying at the end of this workout, so I did not complete 4 sets, but I did hit my 20 reps, which I was proud of. I'm telling you, like, if you're first starting out on a hip abduction machine, this is gonna burn like hell, all right? But you gotta stick with it, and I promise it'll get easier every single time you do it. But keep the weight low, right? Keep the weight light. You don't need to be lifting like 100+ pounds when you're doing 15 to 20 reps. Key to progressive overload is sticking within a rep range, slowly building up your strength within that rep range. Like using this exercise as an example, let's say you're doing 15 reps using 50 pounds and you're consistent and you're able to work your way up to doing 20 reps with 50 pounds. And once you're sitting there for a while, you got the hang of it, then you would go ahead and go back to 15 reps and increase the weight. So maybe you're able to do 60 or 70 pounds for 15 reps, and then you would complete the same process over again. That is progressive overload. That's an easy way to do it, but that does require you tracking your progress and actually committing to a rep range. The point is, you do want to make sure you're progressing, and it makes it really hard if you're not actually sticking to a rep range to track your progress, because then you're going to be all over the place. You're not going to know what you lifted last workout, right? And then you're not going to know for sure that you're actually progressing in your lift. And that's a wrap. We've come to the end of the workout and the end of the video. So thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to subscribe and leave a comment letting me know what you learned.